Honesty, passion, experience. It's Timberwolves Explosion, hosted on the Paladinolive network. And now, your host, Paladino Joey. Hello again, Timberwolves fans. Are you ready for the explosion of Timberwolves basketball? I'm your host, Paladino Joey, or Joey Awajan. Timberwolves Explosion is available on all of your favorite podcasting apps. I thank you once and always for downloading and listening to this show. Thank you always for that. And of course, Spotify, I highly recommend that. It will definitely help the growth of the show, being this is on Spotify for podcasters. That's the provider we're using. So thank you always. It's a great pleasure to be back on board with you once again today, as now we are jumping into the granddaddy of them all, State of the Timberwolves 2023. So of course in this segment we're going to look over the Timberwolves season, kind of put a bow on it, give you my biggest disappointment, biggest surprise, and MVP of the season for 2022-2023. That one is probably pretty easy. The other ones, there'll be some conversations, and I'm putting out polls basically as I'm speaking for this. So by the time we get to fan interaction, we'll have your response, which is the more important one than mine, even though I'm the host of the show, so I give my opinion, but then we get to hear your opinions and hear what you have to say. You, the people of the Timberwolves Explosion Paladinolive network. No, I'm just kidding. Of the Timberwolves fan faithful. We really appreciate you guys very much. So let's again look over the season. Talk about kind of leading into the year. The Timberwolves, it's July 4th weekend. It's a beautiful day outside, kind of like the moment I'm recording this first segment, but not as beautiful. It's a little hotter, less windy. It was nice and breezy that day. And I was kind of stuck indoors recording Brave the Wild's State of the Wild, because obviously Timberwolves Explosion one was long done and we'd made the draft and everything, and free agency was starting. And then all of a sudden the Timberwolves make this huge trade. There were all kinds of rumors, and something will happen, something won't happen. Let's see what happens. Karl Anthony Towns is flashing on the screen right now. But then all of a sudden there it is. Timberwolves trade all these pieces for Rudy Gobert, Wahoo, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, 4 first-round picks too, huh? See, it's one thing if it's Jordan McLaughlin, if it's guys like Malik Beasley, Jared Vanderbilt, guys like that, Patrick Beverley, okay, Patrick Beverley's really old, injury prone, he's kind of an ass, apparently, and I know I'm calling people names way too much lately, and I'm sorry, this probably doesn't sound good. But he's not, sometimes he's not the best guy to have in your locker room. He has a shelf life, kind of like a lot of players, like Sam Cassell, even, believe it or not, at times. So it's like, okay, yeah, we did that, but then we trade, it's every other year. Another first-round pick gone, another one bites the dust, another one bites the dust. So it's not quite as bad as the Joe Smith fiasco when we were going to lose 5 first-round picks in a row. Had a small break with one coming back, but I don't know. Now that I'm going off into that, I apologize. But it's like, okay, it's Rudy Gobert. Wow, he's Defensive Player of the Year, this and that. Not a great offensive player, but he can score a bit. And my God, he's a phenomenal rebounder. He blocks shots. He changes shots. He's a difference maker. He's exactly what we needed. There it is. Now we have the Twin Towers. Karl Anthony Towns can fly like an eagle, this and that. And then everything basically went pear-shaped for the most part. Timberwolves still had a strong run and made the postseason and everything, but had to do it through the play-in tournament yet again. I suppose things could be worse, but things could certainly have been better. From a 46-win season, the Timberwolves dropped down to 42-win season, and that was after a fairly impressive run to get back in the mix. Things were that ugly. So it's kind of a damn shame. And this was with the brand new general manager, Tim Connelly, coming in like, wow, this is exciting. We got a huge name. I guess it's just not going to be for Sasha and Gupta, but, he's going to stay as the vice president of ops. Okay, sounds good. And believe me, I would take that job in a heartbeat. But in his case, I can imagine the frustration. He was in charge for a year and was, you're contractually still with us and this and that. And, what the heck? Yeah, you're welcome to stay if you want to. If you don't, it's up to you, blah, blah, blah. Then, yeah. I can imagine his feeling a little bit. But then you kind of go into the season with hopes, thinking for the best, this and that. You got this, you made the huge move right away with this new general manager. You made what looked like some really nice draft picks, especially like Walker Kessler. You're thinking, okay, I mean, there's a chance. We'll see what happens. Wendell Moore can play a little defense. Yeah, okay, we'll see. Josh Minot, wow, what an amazing summer league. All of that amounted to not a whole lot. A lot of times in the NBA, if you're not like a really blue chip guy, rookies don't do much. And that's kind of been a trend for quite a while now. They don't get a lot of playing time, especially with the G League now. So that's kind of the way things go there, unfortunately. Josh Minot would go on to play 15 games and average, like a point and a half a game or something like that. No, 3 points a game, but it was like little spurts. 6 minutes a game in 15 games. Wendell Moore Jr. got to play in 29 games coming out of Duke. I literally averaged a point and a half. He attempted not many threes and whatever. He made less than 11% there. So much for that, unfortunately. Doesn't mean he's done or anything, but a pretty weak regular season, I'd have to say. But then, okay, that's kind of the conversation with the rookies. Walker Kessler, again, included in the Utah trade. That was the one that had you wondering, okay, we'll see if he's going to be something, but he's probably just a slow guy who blocks some shots. Maybe he gets, blocks some shots. Maybe he was just kind of sort of lucky, I guess, and maybe it won't translate to the NBA. It translated to the NBA pretty quickly. Walker Kessler Jr. ended up looking awfully good. And Rudy Gobert was off to a slow start and kind of got better and better as the year progressed, and then started to regress again some more. Chemistry issues with some clown named D'Angelo Russell. Okay, yeah, D'Angelo Russell, who's hot and cold like everybody's business. And there are stands in this town for D'Angelo Russell. I've not been combated by any of them, but I'm sure other people have, other local media members. Maybe I'm just too small to get any combat, but maybe that's okay. We had huge hopes for Jalen Noel coming into this season, and he had career lows in basically every statistical number when it came to field goal percentage and such. His points were a little higher, 10.8. I mean, that's nice, but that's just a single empty stat as far as I'm concerned. Jalen Noel did not look good most of the year, but he did have a nice start for a couple of minutes and then kind of dropped off the map very quickly after that. So, huge frustration there. Jaden McDaniels, very slow start to the season, but continued to progress during the course of the season, and it stayed healthy and all that, and it was amazing. And then he breaks his hand. And then he frickin' breaks his hand late in the year, having kind of a temper tantrum heading to the locker room on what he thought was like some BS calls, this and that, heading into the locker room. Yeah, like just two fouls basically. I don't know. Breaks his hand punching the wall, thinking there was some padding behind this painting or cloth hanging from the ceiling or whatever the heck. But I don't know. I don't know. That's why you got to kind of pretend you're hitting it. Which I do at work a lot. I pretend I'm hitting something, like I just did just now. I just pretended I'm punching the table. Son of a biscuit, ding busket, rather than cursing your head off and getting in huge trouble. Yeah, that kind of stuff. And the NBA, I guess they don't get in huge trouble unless they're fronting kids. Maybe that doesn't go over too well. But, yeah, it was a complicated season. Things could have been so much better in so many ways. The trade, And you hear ongoing conversations of the role players we traded away. They had their moments, but then when push came to shove, particularly in the postseason, the Jared Vanderbilts, the Malik Beasleys didn't do jack bleep for the LA Lakers. They really didn't. During the regular season, they got better. Or they were valuable, though. They were pieces of the Lakers getting better in the regular season. Playoffs roll around. I guess that's very Minnesota-like, where everybody stops playing, especially for like the Minnesota Wild, but the Wolves as well. Not everybody stopped playing. Anthony Edwards played well most of the time, and we'll get back to that and cross that bridge when we get there. Karl Anthony Towns had gone to miss, 53 flipping games with the calf injury. Yeah, and all kinds of fear of what it could have possibly been, like almost a torn Achilles, because it's around that same area. Kevin Durant had like issues going into the NBA Finals, comes back, and then, the thing pops. That was against Toronto in 2019, and then never plays for the Warriors again. A couple years later, finally resurfaces with the Nets because it took forever to heal, like it always does, and blah, 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 blah. Good riddance to the Warriors being a dynasty. Oh, God. Hopefully, it's over. I think I've had enough. Got to see an interesting rookie like Luka Garza pop up a couple games and then kind of pop back down. I don't know. Interesting trade during the course of the year as well. as the Wolves finally got rid of D'Angelo Russell, and that's how a lot of those other guys that we traded to Utah wound up with the Los Angeles Lakers, because the Lakers and the Jazz were involved in the D'Angelo Russell trade, which also involved Russell Westbrook leaving the Los Angeles Lakers to the Jazz for like a split second and then resurfaced with the Clippers. And then he was terrible for a while at the beginning and then helped that team kind of remerge. So everybody kind of turned out better in that trade, believe it or not. The Clippers ended up turning out better. The Jazz ended up clearing up more cap space and getting rid of guys they didn't have any long-term plans with. In Jared Vanderbilt and Malik Beasley. We'll see if the Los Angeles Lakers have any interest. Vince Germano, very quickly, a big fan of Jared Vanderbilt, myself as well. But I think the problem with him is he lacks kind of like size. He lacks strength. He lacks size and strength. And he gets banged up kind of easily. And I don't know, he's just not that strong, and that's a huge difference. That's why you don't call him the Worm, like Dennis Rodman, maybe the Little Worm, like a light version. He's never going to be Dennis Rodman. He's not. He's not going to pull down 22 rebounds just like that. He's not going to do it. So obviously the Wolves came out better with an adult in the room, and Mike Conley, who actually can shoot quite a bit, 42% from the floor with the Wolves in 24 games, 5 assists. Yeah, he's an adult in the room. He's also a guy, though, if he was younger, it would have taken a lot more than D'Angelo Russell to get him. I'm telling you, Mike Conley was an awesome player for the Jazz previously, and of course, absolutely for the Memphis Grizzlies before that. Absolutely in love with Mike Conley coming into the draft years ago with Greg Oden, both of them coming out of Ohio State. Unfortunately, Greg Oden's career was cut very, very short, as a lot of you know. Very disappointing story there. But love what Mike Conley can do, and I'm happy to have him. It just sucks that he's like old. He's 36 already. I mean, it's just sad to think about. And I'm pretty sure he was just a freshman coming in from college at the time. So it's been that long already. I guess so, huh? I mean, we're talking like 2007, I believe, huh? God, that's a long time. Man. Mike Conley, man, I really loved him. Or was it 08? I think it was 08, the Russell Westbrook draft. I think they were in the same draft, actually. Russell Westbrook, a lot of us were like, what's he doing there? And then he ended up, he ended up going higher than people expected and ended up being pretty good. Taurean Prince was relatively disappointing. A lot of his analytics and all that, his defensive numbers were horrendous this year. He was generally disappointing. He's an adult in the room for the most part. He also, again, had the other incident where Gobert and Anderson blew up at each other, and Gobert punched Anderson basically, kind of like a grazed in the punch, but yeah, it got kind of ugly and all that. Kyle Anderson went on a huge rant saying basically, in the locker room, cursing and all that, saying basically, you all have some decisions to make this summer. As in, like, yeah, you've been kissing his ass all year. Him being Rudy Gobert. I think everybody listening to this podcast, when you go into the workplace, can relate to that feeling. That certain people get their ass kissed all the time, and they don't deserve it. They get away with stuff. So I can understand that. I could name names right now, but I better not. I shouldn't even be saying that I shouldn't even be mentioning the conversation at all. But I apologize for that kind of childish remark on my part. So we'll kind of get into the season a little bit. I was kind of talking about, again, the overall frustrations that ultimately ended in a 5-game defeat to the potential world champion Denver Nuggets. At the time I'm recording, segment number 1, the Denver Nuggets are in the NBA Finals and have just beaten the Miami Heat pretty convincingly. So that's kind of where we're at the moment that I'm recording this segment. Segment number 1.5 will remerge once again. That is the NBA Finals talking about the NBA Finals a little bit because I don't anticipate making a huge thing about it. It's the Heat and the Nuggets. I'm not that like, oh my God, whoa. Last year was quite emotional. I wanted Boston really bad, and I hate the Warriors, and I love Boston. And the way that thing went down, let me tell you, there was a reason why I was pretty emotional on that one. This one, I probably won't be too emotional, but still, I'll be happy for whoever wins and whoever won in this case by the time you're listening, because this show is usually recorded or released after the NBA Finals, but happy for whoever won, which is probably Denver, and sad for whoever loses, which is probably Miami, but we'll see. It's going to be similar in the NHL. I love the Golden Knights, but I also am very impressed with what the Florida Panthers have done. If you like hockey, State of the Wild, Brave the Wild is the hockey show, and it's State of the Wild possibly coming out not too long after this one, usually. In the past, it used to come earlier, but the hockey draft is after the NBA draft, so it's like a week later. So, got to get this thing out before that, obviously, as you've noticed, now that you're listening to it. Why am I talking like this? I apologize. So, again, did the season start well? Sort of, not really, kind of. I don't know. Why? Why am I even... Yep, the thing like restarted in the wrong place. The preseason, the Wolves were really good until the last game. But the preseason, who cares? We beat Miami, we beat the Lakers, we beat the Clippers, we beat the Lakers again, and we lost to the Brooklyn Nets. Regular season opener against the OKC team that was pretty weak last year. The year before, anyway, that is. The year before this past season, so, yeah. And, yeah, Timberwolves beat them 115-108. Might as well look at that one if it loads. I think, yeah, I was running better. It looks totally different now. It just updated, apparently. Rudy Gobert actually led the Wolves in scoring in his first ever game with the Wolves, and it kind of does work that way. Anthony Edwards did start kind of weird this season. I remember first seeing him and like, man, he's big. He looks like a Mike Tyson now. He's big, like ready to knock people out. And he started kind of slow, but 4 of 17. That's what I mean. He started kind of poorly. Jalen Noel started decently with 13 points, but again, didn't shoot particularly well. Karl Anthony Towns started terribly, 2 of 10. Little did we know what kind of a frustrating year it would be for him. Jaden McDaniels, 19 points. So it wasn't a slow start right away, but Jaden McDaniels, generally speaking, would have a relatively slow start to the season. But it is ironic. Usually the new guy, if it's a big name, ends up leading the team in scoring for some reason, even if he's not a major scorer, to start out the season. But interesting there. Then the Wolves would get beat by Utah, so it's like amazing how that works out. They have a schedule with Utah right away after that. An overtime game that was pretty entertaining. There was definitely some frustration coming from the other side. But Jordan Clarkson, who always buried the Wolves in this one with 29 points. He couldn't miss. Lauri Markkanen, who could have been a Timberwolf and wound up being the most improved player in the NBA and a starting all-star this year. 24 points, 13 rebounds, and 5 assists. Those are literally Garnett numbers there. Beasley had some moments. Walker Kessler, 4 blocks in the game. Very impressive. Rudy Gay still playing. He could have been a Timberwolves pick way back in 2006. I mean, that's ancient history. Jalen Noel, 18 points off the bench. Blah, 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 so on and so forth. Anthony Edwards rebounded with 30 compared to that awful first game. But, yeah, I mean, it was nice. It was fun. It was great to see Anthony Edwards play so well. But compared to the first game, but the Wolves to lose in OT. They'd win by 10 versus OKC the next one. I'm not going to look over every single game, but again, another 30-point game for Edwards, so he would reemerge. Again, a strong start to the season for Jalen Noel, which led me to signing him in fantasy basketball. But a week later or so, that was it. By about the end of October, there was like, no way you're going to sign Jalen Noel. He's one of the easiest cuts of all time when it came to that. Amazingly, the Wolves lost to the Spurs, who did get the number 1 pick in the draft. They're going to take the French player, of course, most likely, unless they surprise us all. They were 3-1 to start the year, but it also tells you the first week of the season doesn't always mean diddly, even in the NBA. It's good to get a strong start, but sometimes things change real quick. The Wolves would rebound and beat the Spurs 134-122, beat the Lakers 111-102, and then lose to San Antonio again. God. That was, again, the Achilles heel of the Wolves this year with a horrible, horrible record versus the worst 4 or 5 teams in the NBA and sub-500 teams. The Wolves had the worst record of all of basically everybody in that record with a winning record this year. So huge embarrassment there. Phoenix pretty much owned the Wolves all season, 116-117 to open November. Wolves to lose to the Bucks. They even lost. We beat the Houston Rockets. Finally ended the losing streak, beating the Rockets, which is great, I guess. 129-117. Karl Anthony Towns to lead the Wolves there. Taurean Prince with 11 points off the bench. 11 assists for Jordan McLaughlin, who again was a massive disappointment this year. Kyle Anderson would show all the smarts and intelligence of Sam Mitchell, kind of modern day Sam Mitchell for the Wolves, and including the attitude of it. Because Sam Mitchell, of course, was a tough guy to deal with, but in a good way, he's a good guy. But if you went the wrong direction, he would give you a hard time, and that's just the way it goes. Tom Thibodeau and the New York Knicks had beat the Wolves 120-107, so another 3-game losing streak as the Wolves would lose to the Knicks, the Suns, and Memphis Grizzlies all in a row. John Morant was talking all kinds of crap the whole game, and I remember Jim Peterson saying, he's been talking smack the whole game, like he's had enough of it. When you start talking fast, that's when you're like really pissed off at somebody. Yeah, you could tell Jim Peterson was like, he was getting sick of it. Like, shut up, you stupid punk. And John Morant shows the world what a punk he is. He's done that. He's shown the world what a punk he is, in more ways than one. The past 2 years or so, it is. I don't know. I was a fan. I thought he was better than that, but he has an attitude and whatever. I'll stop with the names other than calling him a punk because he is one. The Wolves would then beat Cleveland. That was a very impressive win. I remember that. Yep, in November. It was a really good day. I think the Vikings that might have been the day the Vikings beat the Buffalo Bills. The Wild lost to an inferior team, and then the Wolves beat Cleveland. I remember thinking, like, okay. I was doing Purple Mafia at the time and saying, wow, the Wolves are beating Cleveland on the road. That's pretty good. And I kept saying that, so I was really looking forward to doing Timberwolves Explosion that week. I remember things not so good after that. Darius Garland would have 51 points in the game, though. Good God. D'Angelo Russell with 30. Karl Anthony Towns with 29. Anthony Edwards with only 10. What the heck is that? So Darius Garland really dominating in that one. But the Wolves escaped that one in impressive fashion. Actually, the Wolves did go on a win streak after that. A 5-game ditty of beating Orlando on the road, which never happens. That was awesome. Finally beating Orlando on the road, which for some reason was one of the tougher matchups for the Wolves historically. And Karl Anthony Towns with 30. Anthony Edwards with 35. But a lot of times you see Gobert only averaging like one block basically most games. So that's another frustration with him. The Wolves have beat the Miami Heat, who are at minimum the Eastern Conference champs. Philadelphia, who's a big threat on the road. Very impressive win against Joel Embiid, who's been a thorn in the side for the Wolves forever. Beat Indiana 115-101. Lost to the Charlotte Hornets, the Warriors, and the Washington Wizards in embarrassing fashion. 142-127 in Washington. As an old coworker would once say, who do they have? Like, who's on that team? Yeah, exactly. Kristaps Porzingis, a guy who a lot of people look at and he's disappointing. He's kind of lazy. He's kind of this. He's kind of that. 41 points. The guy who's been a thorn in the Wolves' side forever, going back to his days with the Knicks, not just the Dallas Mavericks, but the Knicks too. 41 points for Kristaps Porzingis, making the Wolves' big men look like idiots. I'm so glad we focused on big men, and then you get a result like that. 109-101 win for the Wolves on the end of November, at the end of November versus the Memphis Grizzlies. We appreciate that one big time. 29 for Anthony Edwards in that one. So appreciate that as we head into the month of December. Try not to make this too long. A loss to OKC, again, a team that we were eventually going to, because they were better than a lot of people thought, a team we would eventually have to beat to get into the postseason. And we did eventually. The win over Indiana, 121-115. Utah, 118-108. Loss at Portland, 124-118. That's another, back-to-back losses at Portland, including a 133-112 thrashing on December the 12th. Did you hear that? 133-112 thrashing on December the 12th. Again, further proof losing to those bottom four teams the way we did, like Detroit. Portland was bad, but they had a winning record at the time. That's hard to believe. Portland had a better record than the Wolves. That's right. They did start the season surprisingly. But then it was just boo! I mean, it was just adios, amigo. They went downhill to a point of like time to trade Damian Lillard, which now maybe the Wolves trade Karl Anthony Towns instead. Pretty crazy thought right there when you think about that. But nonetheless, an extremely embarrassing loss on December the 12th versus Portland.
This is BS, ladies and gentlemen.
As now, like, dare I venture into the box score for that one? Like, why the heck not, right? December the 12th versus Portland, like I said, like 6 times already. Yep, 133-112. It's not a rumor. It's not a myth. This was in Moda Center, so not the Rose Garden anymore, and not Target Center or anything. So at least it wasn't a home game. Jaden McDaniels, a cool 2 points. He filled the stat sheet, though. 1 rebound, 1 assist, 1 steal, 1 block, and 2 points. So, like, 1 basket. All right, Jaden. There you go, see? Rudy Gobert got 20 rebounds. Okay, that's always great. D'Angelo Russell, 23 points. Anthony Edwards, 17. And not the best game. 6 of 16. I don't know. It was more of a defensive effort than anything. Like, the offense was adequate. Jalen Noel, 7 of 12. Gosh, he actually played pretty good. Jalen Noel still, like, at least in the year 2022, had some good games. Then we shift into 2023. It's like, who again? Who's that Jalen Noel guy? I have no idea. It's Jalen Noel, I guess. But, the game was so bad, the Wolves emptied the bench with 4 minutes and 3 seconds left. As Matt Ryan was added during the middle of the season here, or the early stages. And, he saw some action, but not a whole lot. Wendell Moore, Josh Bernat, Nathan Knight, and Luca Garza, which we all like and appreciate. But overall, pretty yucky game. 3 of 10 for D'Angelo Russell. Things like that aren't going to help your cause. Nor Karl Anthony Towns. Karl Anthony Towns had vanished off the face of the earth around this time. I'm trying to pick up Yeah, it was the week of Thanksgiving, if I remember correctly. I believe. Yeah, so Charlotte was Black Friday, and the Wolves always lose on these Black Friday type of days. It was really annoying. There was Karl Anthony Towns, 19 minutes. This not necessarily was the game, no, because I know he played less minutes. It wasn't a very great game for Karl. What did he have? Okay, so I guess, yep, we're backtracking, and I apologize, but kind of pick up the exact game when Karl Anthony Towns left for good. So again, my apologies here. Maybe it was in December, because I know, I mean, he missed 53 games, and I thought it was at the end of November. It was after Thanksgiving, apparently. Yep, he played up. It looks like it must be the Washington game. Only 21 minutes there. And I apologize. It's like, it's just one of those things where it's like, sometimes you have a memory of the exact game and the exact time, and sometimes you don't. Yeah, it had to have been that one, because he's out after that, inactive and all that good stuff, or not so good stuff. It was the Golden State game. The Washington game. He played against Golden State, and the Wolves got romped 137 to 114, and you got to see Rubber Muncher dancing all over the court, and yeah, I don't know, I'm sick of it. But yep, only 22 minutes basically versus Washington, and this was in Capital One Arena. Yep, that's when he was laying on the ground, and they had to help him up and all that, and I was like, oh boy, did he tear his Achilles? Well, just about. I mean, and I'm not trying to add humor to it. It's more like a nervous chuckle, like, yeah, yeah, just about. And then you didn't see him for, 53 games, as we know. You thought, oh, he's getting better. He'll be okay. It's only a 4 to 6 week type of thing. And then it's like, no, it feels more like 3-4 months type of thing. And that's pretty much what it ended up being, much to our chagrin as we move forward. Again, yes, I said the Portland game, where the Wolves got demolished 113 to 112 again. And Portland ended up being one of the worst teams in the league. That's why that's all added up to a crock of crap, with the Wolves having a well below 500 average throughout the season against against the bottom 4 teams in the league. Just embarrassing. What were we, like 8 and no, not 8. What were we, like 5 and yeah, it was a pathetic record, like 5 and 9 or something like that. Yeah, it would pretty much be around something like that. Some of the worst teams in the league. So it was pathetic numbers. I'm sorry I don't have everything, particularly statistics like that out in front of me, and I probably should. But again, one way or another, the Wolves were terrible, particularly against the bottom 4 teams in the league, like Houston and Portland, Detroit, teams like that. Yeah, we lost to Portland twice in just a couple of days. And again, at the time, Portland was decent, but whatever. They became a crappy team as the season progressed, so unfortunately it counts that way. 99-88 lost to a disappointing Clippers team. Crushed Chicago 150 to 126. That was a nice day on December the 18th. Merry Christmas, Timberwolves fans. I do believe this is when the weather started to get super cold out, too. It was a fun day, no doubt about it. Anthony Edwards with 37 points, D'Angelo Russell with 28 and such. Nathan Knight even with 16 off Le Benjamin. But yeah, it was a nice game. 150 points in regulation, of course. This game didn't go to OT. The Wolves won by 24. Then you beat Dallas the next night. That was a lot of fun. And quickly, again, you lose to Dallas after that, 104-99 a couple of days later. And yeah, the weather was extremely cold around that time. I remember that being kind of cooped up around that time. And then the Wolves jumped into a massive losing streak to wrap up the month of December and the year of 2022. Again, losing to Dallas, losing to Boston, 121-109, not a good day. 113-110 loss at Miami, not the worst thing ever, but not good. 119-100 loss versus New Orleans, a 123-114 loss, and then a lifeless, crappy effort on New Year's Eve. And that's not the first time we had a lifeless, crappy effort versus Detroit on New Year's Eve. 116-104. What the heck? Gosh. So, yeah, that's one of those bottom 4 teams where the Wolves just fell off the face of the earth. And yes, that's what it was. 9 of 15 was officially the record. Yep, in each conference. Yep, so 9 of 15. Now I have the official record, and I apologize for being kind of slow to the gun here. Washington, Orlando, Charlotte, and Detroit in the East. Utah, Portland, Houston, and San Antonio in the West. Surprised you call it Utah. But yeah, Utah had dropped off a bit. So 9 and 15 overall. Still, that's pathetic when you consider the bottom 4 teams in each conference. So that's like the whole thing. Whereas you had the bottom 4 teams overall, like Portland, Houston, and San Antonio was putrid this year too, and we got beat by them twice in just a couple days. It's like, what the hell? And you can't even beat Detroit. You can't beat Charlotte. What the flip Saunders is that crap? We did beat Orlando, so it was like a split with them. We beat them once. Yeah, Washington, just embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing. And yeah, the Spurs were pathetic this year, and that's why they have the number 1 pick, kind of like many years ago when David Robinson broke his foot and blah, 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 and so on and so forth. Detroit game was awful. Anthony Edwards did have 30 points, but yeah, let's just move on from that. We don't need to talk about it too much. It's kind of getting to be ramble, and I apologize, but oftentimes that's how these go. And then the Wolves got streaky again. What did we lose, 6 in a row? Now we win 4 in a row. Ooh, ringing in the new year. We even beat the future world champion or future runner-up Denver Nuggets 124 to 111. That's not bad in Target Center. That was a nice day, and the Wolves occasionally actually beat the Denver Nuggets. And, in the gentleman's sweep this past year, the Wolves competed against them, and it was nice and everything. But, I don't know, it wasn't that good of a series, to be quite fair. Getting hot in here, so apologize. I'm messing around. Anthony Edwards again continues to lead the team in scoring every single night, pretty much. Like, not every night, but generally speaking, it felt like it. Nikola Jokic, the real MVP, with 24 points, 9 assists, only 7 rebounds. What's going on, Nikola? But that's because Aaron Gordon stole 16 of them, that son of a gun. That stat-stuffing son of a gun, sorry. The Wolves actually beat Portland and Houston, and in this week, in the course of the week, beat the Los Angeles Clippers on the 6th, January 6th. Yeah, I know. We'll leave that alone, please. Houston assholes. No, that's what a certain guy called them. What was it? That was Michael Thompson years ago. What a clown. God, entertaining, but a clown, though, as a color commentator. At Houston, 104-96, we actually beat them, yay. And then we head to Detroit and get our butts handed to us again. So again, swept by Detroit, like I said earlier. We did get swept by Detroit and Charlotte this year, which is, enter the word involving really bad and dumb and low IQ and stuff. It's pathetic. Anthony Edwards led the Wolves in scoring with 20 points and only played in 24 minutes because it was a lifeless horse bleep effort. That's why D'Angelo Russell almost fouled out, and he actually shot well for once. Thanks, but he almost fouled out, and he only shot the ball 14 times. Isn't that funny? D'Angelo Russell shoots 50%, only attempts 14 shots. 8 3-points attempted, which is a decent amount, made 5 of them, but again, only attempted 14 total shots. When the guy's actually making his shots, now he's actually kind of like being more conservative. We got to relax a little bit, because, I mean, you told me to stop shooting. Yeah, when you're shooting like 7 of like 25, you SOB. Thank you very much. It probably didn't matter anyway if the guy shot like 24 of like 30, it probably would still lose the game to Detroit. That's how bad it's been. 135 points given up against Detroit. Who do they have? I don't care who they drafted last year. Sadiq Bey, well, he's good. Yay. Jaden Ivey, okay, he's fine. Killian Hayes. Killian's Irish Red Hayes. Okay, I'm just kidding. Again, who do they have? I mean, they have nice players. Fine. They have nice players. But not that good. Sadiq Bey, Bojan Bogdanovic, they're fine. But seriously, Detroit was 12-33 at the time. 12-33, and we were battling 500, which is also not really a good thing, considering you were a 46 win team the year before. Anyhow, Phoenix, we actually beat the Suns once. That's amazing. 121-116. That's good. After they'd kind of made us look like idiots over and over and over and over and over and over again. But of course, nobody played except Josh Okogie, who had 7 points. Somebody named Damian Lee had 31 for Phoenix. Mikal Bridges before he went to the Brooklyn Nets later on. It was wonderful there. Ayton is kind of like a meh player. Dario Saric, old 7-Eleven himself, I used to call him. 5 points as a starter. Great. But the Wolves beat Phoenix, and again, all their star players were, doing what they do, pretending to be hurt or actually were hurt. I'm not sure. The Wolves actually swept the Cleveland Cavaliers, which is amazing. Maybe that's why the New York Knicks beat them in the first round, because They not, I don't know, not serious enough? I don't know. Kevin Love was still there at the time before heading to Miami to win an Eastern Conference title at the very least. And an NBA title with the Cleveland Cavaliers many years ago after being there all these years. Wow, impressive, actually. Ricky Rubio coming back from an ACL, poor guy. So, a really sad situation there. But, yeah, returning. I believe this was his first game back during the course of that time. But the Wolves win in a solid game, blah, blah, blah. Jalen Noel actually had a couple of good games mixed in, 16 points there. But overall, still a horribly disappointing season for him. He'd score some points, but he wouldn't shoot well. Wolves would lose a 1-point game to the Utah Jazz on the 16th, lose to Denver by 4. A couple of days later, beat Toronto 128 to 126 in Nick Nurse's final season with the Toronto Raptors. The Wolves would win one and lose one versus Houston, which again is extremely annoying. The loss is always kind of a bigger story because you're supposed to beat awful teams like Houston. 11 and 16 or 26, on the season. 11 and 16 is a crappy record. 11 and 36 is garbage. It's horrible. It's horse crap. Jalen Green had 42 points against the Wolves. Jalen Green had 42 points against the Timberwolves. Anthony Edwards and D'Angelo Russell combined for 60, and we lost to the Houston Rockets. We lost to the Houston Rockets, man. Now, Jalen Green's a good player. I'm just messing around. But still, he's like just getting started. The guy was like, I don't know, whether was he 20? Just barely? I don't know. Okay, I better shut up. I mean, Anthony Edwards is like around that age too, so slightly older than him. Kicked our butts, but still embarrassing. Even though they have a nice young guy, coming out and having a nice come out type of game. Why us? Why is it always us? Embarrassing. We beat New Orleans 111-102. Memphis, Sacramento win a couple games. Yep, we had a pretty good season versus Sacramento, but of course we split with them, losing at home to Target Center at the end of January. Impressive win versus Golden State. You figured we beat them at least once or twice a season. Even in the 73-win season, the Wolves beat them once, which was wonderful. The Wolves won in overtime. This was one of the epic comebacks of the season, epic fun type of nights. D'Angelo Russell would get hot. Naz Reid was unbelievable. I do believe he ran into foul trouble, if I remember correctly. Yeah, he did a little bit. D'Angelo Russell actually fouled out. That's funny. But the Wolves ended up winning the game. Naz Reid was so freaking good in that game. So freaking good. And again, it's a heartbreaking, disappointing season when you consider guys like Karl Anthony Towns with a major calf injury. And then Naz Reid would eventually break his hand. Just a nice breakout, improving season by Naz Reid, looking like the kind of guy you'd want on just about any team in the league if you can find minutes for him, which I would hope you could. 127-120 loss to Orlando at home. Come on. And then somehow the Wolves beat Denver by 30. But I think that was another game where guys just kind of all sat out. So, and it was DeAndre Jordan, who's about my age, started at center. Not Vince Carter, but Vlatko Kankar. That's all you need to know. Christian Braun at point guard. So, yeah, it was one of those games where nobody played. And then Jalen Noel got 16 again. That's freaking funny. Jalen Noel would have these little hot games. That's funny, but then he'd come back and suck for weeks, or like a week at least. Denver, and then you come back and get absolutely. They're like, oh, we didn't play last game. Now we're all active and playing. Yeah, take a walk, you little puppies. That's basically what they did to us. I hit the wrong button, which is really annoying. But what was it? 146 to 112. Oh, 146 to 112. Talk about reality setting in. Oh my God. Nikola Jokic, triple-double, 20 points, 12 rebounds, 16 assists. This is a 7'2" guy with 16 assists. That's all you need to know, really. They absolutely made us look like dog dookie. There's nothing else to say about it. Even Michael Porter had 30 points in the game. Wow. Yeah, and then the Wolves win by the next day. This is just further and further proof how inconsistent this team truly is. 143 to 118 the next day over Utah? Sure. Right. Kessler looking good, looking like a starting center with 3 blocks, 16 points, and 9 rebounds. You got to love what he did there. Jalen Noel started in the game and had 30 points. Luka Garza had 25 points off the bench. That is insane. Just one of those nights where everything was going in for the Wolves. And, Utah was kind of mediocre for the most part. Kelly Olynyk started next to Lauri Markkanen, and that's kind of a funny combination, but I guess it works. Then the Wolves lose by 21 to Memphis. A couple days later, what is going on? Then they beat Dallas, okay, by 3. Another loss to Washington, that's a sweep. Another loss to Charlotte a week later after the All-Star break. Welcome back, guys. Let's play. And we lose by 8 points to the Hornets in Target Center. Golden State game, where this was the game that set me off, if I remember correctly, where the Wolves were, the Wolves were winning this game and playing very well. Naz Reid at 30 points. Yep, this is the one. Naz Reid at 30 points. He was absolutely outstanding in this game. I'm almost thinking, is this the one where he got hurt? I don't know, but maybe not. But the Wolves were doing so well for so long. And then the fourth quarter, everything just went down the tubes. It was awful. Wonderful third quarter for the Wolves. And then the fourth quarter, 31-17 in favor of Golden State. Everything went down the tubes. Karl Anthony Towns had been out a while, yucking it up with Luka Garza and Josh Minott on the bench as the Wolves were literally choking away a wonderful game. Naz Reid was absolutely PO'd as things kind of fell apart down the stretch. He was on the bench just kind of staring like, what the bleep, man. They took him out, obviously, just because. So, yes, this one he did not get hurt in. It's not too long after this, though, that Naz Reid gets hurt, unfortunately. Not too long. It's a little bit. During the course of time, the Wolves had acquired Mike Conley along the way as well. How did I jump ahead so quickly? Yeah, because it's February. Let me make sure. Yeah, because Conley wasn't on the Wolves yet, but the Wolves had traded for him, I believe. Nope, D'Angelo Russell are still up there. The Wolves were sitting him out because the trade had happened, but wasn't official yet when the Wolves crushed the Utah Jazz. Yeah, I remember. It was right around that time. I believe it was the 7th when all that took place. Conley, his first game with the Wolves was against the Memphis Grizzlies, this team that he was with forever. Kind of mediocre, average kind of game. Like a backup point guard, but he would get better and better as things progressed. But that Golden State game, I was furious at Karl Anthony Towns. You're supposed to be either the leader or the number 2 guy or whatever. But for the longest time, before Anthony Edwards is starting to kind of take more of an alpha position on this team, Karl Anthony Towns was supposed to be that guy. Especially when you're going to pay him $300 million basically. And he's yucking it up as things literally collapse right before our eyes. A very winnable game against a defending champion team on the road, regardless of how I feel about the Warriors. They're a defending champ. And you just pee down your leg. And then, the team completely pees down their leg down the stretch. And Karl Anthony Towns is yucking it up as the game isn't over yet with Luka Garza and Josh Minott. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was the most, unprofessional, childish thing. Nobody brought it up. I don't understand. Phil Mackey, locally, Score North, Judd Zulgad, Declan Goff, did they watch the game? They didn't even bring it up. And these are the guys that are more honest and critical of bullcrap like that. Paul Allen's never going to bring that kind of stuff up. Well, maybe once in a blue moon. Even Dan Barrero didn't bring it up, if I remember correctly. It's they probably tuned out or something. I couldn't believe they didn't bring it up. But a couple days later, the Wolves beat the Clippers. Yay. Who are on a huge losing streak because they were, Russell Westbrook was bringing some of that losing energy to L.A. at the time, but later on would get better for the Clippers. Went from one L.A. to the other, just switching locker rooms, I guess. L.A. Lakers, pardon me, the Wolves would beat them after their trade that made them better. But later on, things would turn pretty quickly with those two teams. Wolves with an epic battle versus Sacramento. That one was fun. 138-34. Didn't even go to overtime. But an epic back-and-forth fun game. Anthony Edwards was fantastic. Mike Conley with 24. Anthony Edwards with 27. Fun. Kevin Huerter with 29 as well. Just an overall fun night. The Wolves would have a epic battle with this club and get the job done and win. Naz Reid was not starting. Kyle Anderson would enter the starting lineup and all of that. Brought some of that wonderful the Wolves that would manage different lineups throughout the season. Kyle Anderson would have some, he would have near triple-double games almost every night. Sorry this segment is so long. I should probably keep moving. I'm not going to dig into some of these too much. 117 demolition, 117-94 demolition to Philly, a 1-point loss to Brooklyn. Killed Atlanta, 136-115, which is really rare, honestly. 2-point loss to Boston, which was disappointing. Bulls would beat the Wolves 139 points given up there. Not even any reason to look at that. Lose to Toronto, so a 3-game losing streak there. Then you beat the Knicks and Atlanta back-to-back, which is actually kind of impressive, and beat the Warriors again, 99-96. That was always a wonderful feeling. Made us all feel a little bit better. Naz Reid didn't get hurt until much later, 23 points off the bench versus the Warriors. Naz Reid, a couple of great games for the Wolves versus the Warriors. Another nice win versus Sacramento. Another loss versus Phoenix, and then a 123-111 loss versus the LA Lakers. Not a good night at all. Naz Reid was hurt by that point, and that his injury definitely didn't help the Wolves' cause going forward. I'm trying to remember where the injury actually happened with Naz Reid, and I apologize for my delay. Sacramento, an 18-point game. But yeah, it was kind of like going up for a dunk, basically, and he broke his wrist. And that was really heartbreaking when we saw that happen. 15 points versus the Suns. Again, bigger delay and all that. Must have been versus the Suns, I guess, because he didn't play. But then again, maybe he just missed a game at the end of the day. So we'll come back to that. But I do believe it was that game versus Phoenix, where it's like, oh no. And then that was the end of Naz Reid. Just a few weeks before the postseason, Naz Reid would be out for the rest of the way pretty much, unless the Wolves got to at least the second round. But that would not happen. Anthony Edwards, 37 points versus a terrible Portland team. And the Wolves would not win that, pardon me, 105. The Wolves would lose that season series 3-1. Unbelievable. A 151-131 demolition over the Spurs. So the Wolves were fighting to get in that playoff spot, and that felt really good to see happen. Anthony Edwards at 33 points, and he'd have tons of games like that. Karl Anthony Towns would make his return around this time as well, heading into April. Again, he'd be rusty as heck, but he'd have a couple of good games, and but certainly not the best thing you ever saw, but decent. Yeah, he played against Portland. Did Karl Anthony Towns made his comeback basically around the end of the way here. Apologize for my craziness here. Yep, he did play in the Laker game, which is funny. It's just kind of ironic how things took place. So Naz Reid would get hurt versus Phoenix, and right around the same time Karl Anthony Towns is returning. So it's just ironic how things would happen at the end of the day. But it was nice to have Karl Anthony Towns back. It was a welcome addition, no doubt about it. He had returned versus the Suns, and Naz Reid got hurt at the same time. So just the incredible, just depressing irony that things took place that way. Karl did have a nice game. Maybe it's his future team, maybe not, but probably not. We'll have to wait and see what happens there. But I think I'm babbling too much. I apologize. Then you head into the play-in tournament after crushing the Spurs. That felt good. The Wolves would be at least in position to do something. The Spurs were actually in the play-in tournament last year, where this year they're 100 miles away. The Wolves would end up beating the New Orleans Pelicans because we were the 9th seed. So it was the 9th day of April. The Wolves were the 9th seed. Defeated New Orleans to knock them out completely. And then the Wolves would then lose to the LA Lakers. Nope, the Wolves were the 8th seed. I'm getting this totally mixed up. The Wolves were the 8th seed. New Orleans would mess around with OKC later on. But yeah, the Wolves were the 8th seed. OKC would knock off the Pelicans. That's how the Wolves actually got out of the potential of being like a 9th or 10th seed. The Wolves were actually the 8th seed. That's why we could afford to lose to the Lakers, so to speak. The Lakers would move on to the 7th seed. The Wolves would beat OKC very comfortably and advance to the actual regular postseason, and then lose in a gentleman's sweep to the Denver Nuggets. I don't have a whole lot to say about the series, other than the Wolves had some competitive moments. Game 1 was not competitive. Game 2 was adequate, 122-113. 120-111 loss to go down 3-0, which was not that good. A nice win at home, and then almost beat Denver and hung in there in Game 5, but didn't get the job done. It was actually a valiant effort, but not good enough, and the Wolves season would end in that fashion. So now that I've babbled enough during the course of the regular season, but again, I suppose I do that every year going through the regular season, and it's fun to do, but at the same, looking at notable moments and big blowout wins, big blowout losses, or huge wins over at Golden State and such. Now we'll pass out the season awards for the Minnesota Timberwolves for 22-23. The most valuable player for the season for myself is easily Anthony Edwards. There's no doubt about it. He led the team in scoring almost every night, especially when Karl Anthony Towns went out. It was further and further obvious who the most valuable player of this team is, not just because Karl Anthony Towns went out, but over the course of time as well. Anthony Edwards, maybe not the most mature guy in the world because obviously he's still young, but I think he's showing signs of being the more alpha leader in this locker room than anybody else. It's going to be his team, and even the Tim Conley has acknowledged that in the offseason. Tim Conley will be the president of basketball operations for the Wolves for the foreseeable future because Winger has wound up becoming the Washington Wizards president of basketball. So Winger, who was actually a candidate years ago, before the Wolves ended up hiring Gerson Rosas, Winger actually pulled out. He was the assistant GM basically with the LA Clippers, and a lot of people think highly of him. We'll wait on that. The biggest disappointment or biggest surprise, it's kind of tough with how some of these go. Candidates, for me, you want to say Karl Anthony Towns, that he missed so many games. You want to say Rudy Gobert because of how, he was disappointing, frankly, for what the Wolves gave up to get him and what he really ended up being. I'm going to say Karl Anthony Towns is the biggest disappointment because, not because of he got hurt, so he sucks. No, that's not why. That's not why. It's the attitude to go along with, mediocre up and down play. Expectations, folks. It's not because he was the worst player on the team, because of course not. Karl Anthony Towns wasn't the worst player on the team. He was the most disappointing player this season. That's why. That's why Karl Anthony Towns ultimately is the biggest disappointment. Rudy Gobert, strong honorable mention considering what he is. And honestly, you could go either way with both of those guys. They let us down this year. I'm sorry. No matter what you say. They let us down, and you're not going to change my mind. It's not happening. Jaden McDaniels was disappointing for a while, and then all of a sudden, holy crap. It was like, what an unbelievable stud he was. Jalen Noel obviously deserves massive honorable mention for being a huge disappointment. So does Jordan McLaughlin. He stunk. Jordan McLaughlin stunk, and I don't even want him back anymore. The guy can't play. I don't know. I was very disappointed in him, to say the least. Biggest surprise, it's kind of like all over the place. Maybe just how McDaniels emerged so nicely during the course of the season. Naz Reid becoming a bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger threat, as nice as he was. But, it's like a lot of people talk so positively about Jaden McDaniels coming in, kind of like miniature Pippen comparisons and stuff with his incredible defense and capabilities. So I'm going to go with Naz Reid for the biggest surprise on the season, because when you consider, and just what a positive he was, when you consider, it's like, like say the Vikings had Chester Taylor years ago, and then we draft Adrian Peterson, and it's like, well, so much for poor Chester Taylor. Gosh, he had such a wonderful season in 2006. Clearly, he'd become a starting running back in the league and look like a really good one, and then we reward him by drafting Adrian Peterson, and it's like, well, okay, now you're the number 2 guy. But luckily, to Chester Taylor's credit, he became one of the best third down running backs in the NFL, maybe in NFL history, at least during 2009. The chemistry with Favre and such on those third and shorts with those nice little screen plays, he was incredible. That's obviously Viking take. But the way Naz Reid emerged in a situation where you already have Karl Anthony Towns, and then you bring in Rudy Gobert. For Naz Reid to be the positive he was, absolutely, to me, makes him the biggest surprise in the season, considering it's like he was buried. Like poor Jake Reed, an amazing emergence for a few years with the Vikings, and then the Vikings draft Randy Moss, and it's kind of like, oh, that sucks. Other honorable mention for biggest surprise, it could be Nickeil Alexander-Walker. A lot of people saw him as kind of like a meh player, that he's nothing, he's not anything, he's just, he's an okay mid-first round pick, who's, he's just okay. And then all of a sudden it's like, wow, he's got some nice length, and he's got a little offensive ability as well. Nice. He even shot 36% from downtown, which isn't great, but it's better than nothing. But no, Naz Reid's the biggest surprise. It's just such a huge, huge value to this team, and we really appreciate what he does. Anthony Edwards MVP with a bullet. He's the alpha, he's the franchise, and he's the guy. He's number one, and he really is number one too. And hopefully someday he'll be the best player in the league, or at least if not top 5, top 10 player in the league going forward. But I do think top 5 is very possible with what Anthony Edwards brings to this team. So with that said, we'll take a quick break, come back, and look towards the future into segment 2. But first, segment 1.5 makes its return as we talk about the NBA Finals. And we are back here on Timberwolves Explosion, State of the Timberwolves 2023, the famous segment 1.5, which is a once-a-year type of deal where we talk about the NBA Finals, and the small portion of the show where we will talk about everything but the Timberwolves, unless the Timberwolves actually make it to the NBA Finals and all that, but that's pretty much what this is designated for, since this is a wall-to-wall Timberwolves type of episode. As you probably know, and I talked about in segment number 1, the Denver Nuggets swept the LA Lakers 4-0, and the Boston Celtics roared back from a 3-0 deficit in the Eastern Conference Finals. Almost won it, but then here comes Game 7, and the Heat then just say, get the hell out of here. Yeah, okay. So the old tradition of the Boston Celtics winning Game 7, winning the 7th game, in these series at home, did not hold on this time around. The Heat just kind of showed up to play right out of the gate and made three-pointer after three-pointer after three-pointer. And then, unfortunately, for the Miami Heat, their miracle run would come to an end, as you'd hear pretty much gold in both cases. Both the city of Miami and Florida and all that would get to the finals with an 8th seed in the NHL and the NBA, only to lose to a team with some type of relation to gold. In case of the Nuggets, that's gold nuggets, like mining gold in the Rocky Mountains or whatever the heck, in the Old West or the Rocky Mountains. In the case of the Denver Nuggets, with the pick and the shovel and all that cute stuff, Denver Nuggets would win their first ever NBA championship. We'll look at their history a tiny bit. And, of course, in the NHL, a six-year-old franchise, the Vegas Golden Knights, would defeat the Florida Panthers also in 5 games. So, kind of sort of gentlemen sweeps, unfortunately. And that's just how it goes. That's how it goes. You get to the final, but then there's another team on the other side that's like ready to go, and they got the job done. Denver Nuggets looked like one of the weaker number 1 seeds you can imagine in the Western Conference. A lot of people might have thought the Wolves were a fairly weak number 1 seed years ago, but we did win 58 games and we were legit. But of course, magically, there's this Laker team with, that was built with a super club and all that stuff, but a beatable team, as the Detroit Pistons proved to us the next round. And, of course, Sam Cassell's back going out because of his big balls dance, or whatever the heck you'd call it, big cojones dance in the previous round. Certainly didn't help the cause and led to a back injury. I don't know how that can happen, but it did, which was very devastating to Timberwolves fans, because we actually had a legitimate shot of winning an NBA title. Denver Nuggets were founded in 1967. They were, believe it or not, called the Denver Rockets. I actually, my NBA history is pretty good. I'm pretty knowledgeable. I don't remember reading this about the Denver Nuggets being the Denver Rockets. Maybe it's some kind of Mandela effect. I don't know. But yes, I do know they were in the ABA, but they were only called the Nuggets for 2 years, 74 to 76. All right, but I do remember Larry Brown was their head coach really way back in the day, and they were a very promising franchise in the American Basketball Association. Believe it or not, Minnesota had the Minnesota Muskies and the Minnesota Pipers, but they only lasted a short time in the Met Center back in the late 60s, early 70s. That's when the ABA was around. It was very cool, and then ultimately the two teams the leagues merged. The ABA merged into the NBA. Certain teams were dissolved. Other teams like the Pacers, the Nuggets, the Nets all became NBA franchises. San Antonio Spurs as well also joined on board. The Colorado Avalanche, so they actually existed. Interesting. Okay, no, never mind. They did not exist. I am such an idiot. Colorado Avalanche. Oh, yeah. No, there's the Colorado Avalanche. They both play in Ball Arena, blah, blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, the Spurs and the Nuggets, along with the Indiana Pacers and the Brooklyn or New York Nets is what they were called way back in the day. became NBA franchises where other teams dissolved. Unfortunately, interesting though, the Denver Rockets. But again, to be founded in 1967, finally win a championship, pretty cool. Phoenix Suns had a chance to win way back. Phoenix Suns had a chance to win and end a 50-year drought of just a couple of years back, and unfortunately lost to the Milwaukee Bucks, who also had a 50-year drought at the time from 71 to 2021. But ultimately, the Bucks ended a 50-year drought. The Suns did not end a 50-year, emptiness, just desert, no championships. Denver ended their drought now and won a championship. So good for them. We've talked about, I've mentioned that a million times already. But obviously, there's a reason why they won. They have a better version, a younger, healthier, a more in his prime version, in a lot of ways, of what Arvydas Sabonis was back in the day. A lot of NBA fans wish they got to see Arvydas Sabonis play in his prime, but we got like the older version by the time he came to the Portland Trail Blazers, but still looked extremely promising. Jokic's ability to basically do just about anything he wants on the court, despite the fact he doesn't look like the greatest athlete ever, but whatever, further proof you don't necessarily have to have that magical look. You don't have to necessarily look like the greatest athlete of all time, but the Denver Nuggets and of course Nikola Jokic proved that it's not about how you look, it's about how you play. And what an amazing player he truly is. I have a ton of respect for him at the end of the day. I was hoping he was going to win the MVP a few years, not just to spite two guys that were getting on my nerves forever, Steph Curry and Joel Embiid, who I've gained a little respect for despite the fact he's hurt all the time, him being Joel Embiid. But Nikola Jokic winning the MVP 2 years in a row, not winning it this year, and of course Embiid winning it this year. And this is the year Jokic goes on to win a title. Embiid, will he ever win a title? I don't know, but we're not really talking about that at the moment. Obviously, because I'm just wandering all over the place. It's been a... yeah, so... But... am I thrilled that the Denver Nuggets won the NBA title? Not necessarily, but... You know what I mean? It is what it is, and they earned it. They absolutely earned it. I'm not complaining about it necessarily. It is ironic, though, that, of course, the Minnesota Timberwolves general manager, or, president of basketball operations, Tim Connolly, was the Denver Nuggets boss for 10 years and ultimately drafted Jokic in the second round of the NBA draft years ago. And it is extremely ironic that the Minnesota Timberwolves had the pick right before Jokic was taken in the second round, and did not take Jokic, unfortunately. The guy that Minnesota took was Glenn Robinson III. Decent player, but didn't last that long in the NBA and wasn't on the Wolves for very long. 7 years in the league, ultimately. 304 games. That's okay, but I don't know. He was more of a role player at best. Glad he made it to the NBA and all that. Glenn Robinson III, of course, son of Glenn Robinson that we know about. Apparently he was the junior, so that's always kind of cool, I guess. But Jokic, again, 41st pick overall in that draft, and an unbelievable career so far, and a couple of MVPs, an NBA championship and NBA Finals MVP, and for all we know, more championships coming, more MVPs coming, an amazing career and a well-deserved, just well-deserved respect from everybody all over the place. Denver had to wait a year to see Jokic. So there's that, but who cares? Who cares, right? I'll wait a year. The Minnesota Wild had to wait 5 years to get Kirill Kaprizov, which is crazy, but ultimately, has led to a great player. No championships, no first-round exits or anything either, or no first-round victories either so far, which figures. But again, further proof that that's how it goes sometimes. It is ironic also that the Minnesota Timberwolves, Tim Connolly with the Denver Nuggets, took Rudy Gobert when he first started as the general manager. I keep calling him general manager, but president of basketball of the Denver Nuggets. Yeah, he took Rudy Gobert in the second round and traded him away before he ever played a game for the Nuggets. And then all these years later, trades for Rudy Gobert. That figures, right? And gives up the farm way too much. Again, after successfully taking another center in the second round named Nikola Jokic. So it's just ironic how all these webs, how all this kind of comes together. It's just kind of funny and crazy. At the end of the day, the Wolves traded for Andrew Wiggins and the whole Kevin Love trade when LeBron James went back to Cleveland. Just absolutely nuts. Dante Exum didn't really wind up being much of a player, 5th overall. Aaron Gordon, who ultimately wound up with Denver years later now. it's just kind of funny. All these connections, all these webs all coming together when you think about it. Gosh, that's just the darndest thing, isn't it? We traded away Zach LaVine for Jimmy Butler, and he played. Jimmy Butler played against Jokic in the final. Blah 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 blah. You could go on all day with one thing after another, but again, a wonderful run by the Denver Nuggets, proving to everybody, hey, we earned this number one seed. You can make fun of us all you want. So much for this great Boston Celtics team that Joey thought was going to win. This Bucks team that a lot of people were really impressed with. We're going to maybe win their next one, and they didn't come close. They got beat by Miami very early, so on and so forth. Philadelphia underachieved again in the playoffs. The Nets did what they usually do, but even though it's actually a decent team, but, certainly not top-heavy, but a decent team overall. So Denver just said, hey, we're still here. You're not. Na boo-boo. And, we're world champions finally. So congratulations to the Denver Nuggets at the end of the day, and they deserve all the credit that they got. So they proved us wrong. Calvin Booth, of course, former member of the Minnesota Timberwolves and Minnesota Timberwolves front office, was the general manager of this Denver Nuggets team that helped put the final pieces together to help this Nuggets win the whole title. So one web after another. Oh yeah, and two more webs that are very important. Very important. David Edelman, lead assistant of the Denver Nuggets coaching staff, lead assistant, former Minnesota Timberwolves assistant coach, and son of Rick Edelman, of course. A lot of people believe he will be a head coach someday. Really cool, really impressed, and he was really cool coming on the KFAN a few times on PA. Very impressive, and we'll see how David Edelman's career can go forward. Maybe he'll be a head coach as soon as next season. And this one guy named Ryan Saunders, former head coach of the Timberwolves and son of Flip Saunders, one of the youngest NBA coaches in history at 32 years old, joining the Timberwolves. Obviously things didn't work out all so great, but I got to think he's going to learn and develop and get better. And Malone, of course, coach of the Michael Malone, coach of the Denver Nuggets, connections with Flip Saunders as well. So the whole thing is ironic and kind of cool and interesting, and all kinds of Minnesota ties, this and that, and Timberwolves ties, and ties to our general manager, obviously our president of basketball. I keep calling him general manager, but it's the same thing, And then people calling, of course, Patrick Royce has to take shots at Stan Kroenke because he's not a hardcore, because he's not a lefty like most people are. So, and I understand if you're a lefty, it is what it is. I'm not here to talk politics. There's different podcasts for that, but just saying, I don't know. Sorry that not everybody's on the left side, I guess. So, of course, Patrick Royce has got to take a shot at every one of them. So that's kind of dumb, but I guess good for him winning a championship again, just like he did with the Rams just like a year and a half ago, basically. Whatever, you like him, you don't like him, it is what it is. Denver Nuggets win the championship, and they did a good job. They pretty much kicked Miami's butt for the most part, even though Miami did have some runs and all that. And for the second time that Jimmy Butler took a team on a nice playoff run, he ends up not being good in the finals. I don't understand. It's weird. Just like with the Lakers, that was kind of a gentleman's sweep as well, wasn't it? So, that was a 5-game series, and Butler wasn't all that great versus the Lakers either. So, though that Laker team, pretty much everybody was like, they're going to win. And a lot of us thought we might see a Lakers-Celtics final, and that went the exact opposite, which I guess at the end of the day didn't surprise me too much. Usually once they make a statement like, here come the Lakers and Celtics, it goes the polar opposite. Like San Francisco, Cincinnati in the Super Bowl. That didn't work out either. It was the dead opposite. Miami, or I was like, just watch. It's going to be Kansas City and Philadelphia. Yep. Just watch. It's going to be Denver and Miami. Yep. So... and Denver winning it. So, they had to win at some point. And again, further proof, absolutely Minnesota can win a championship. And of course, our president of basketball operations put together the main pieces. A guy I still haven't even mentioned yet in this segment, which is going to wrap up very soon. I don't want to talk about this too much. But Jamal Murray, a guy that I loved, a guy that I endorsed very much in the draft a few years back. Wolves ultimately took Chris Dunn, and I stupidly was totally fine with it at the time. But Chris Dunn looked promising. He sounded like he was going to be a nice draft pick for the Timberwolves, but it just wasn't meant to be. And Jamal Murray ended up being everything and more that I was hoping he would be in the NBA. And what a wonderful player. Obviously coming back from an ACL, as they take twice as long in the NBA as they do in other sports, it seems like, for whatever reason. I can kind of understand, but kind of weird at the same time. But there it is. There it is. Jamal Murray, what a wonderful star he truly is. He's a star shooting guard in the NBA, and I'd still take him over Zach LaVine, no matter how many Timberwolves fans may disagree and want to fight me on that. I think Jamal Murray's better, and I think he proved it without a doubt. So, with that said, that's it. We're going to wrap up segment 1.5. Congratulations, Jamal Murray, Calvin Booth, Ryan Saunders, David Edelman, and, of course, Nikola Jokic and Mike Malone. Utterly, absolutely deserving of the championship. And, yeah, well done. Job absolutely well done. A complete team that knows how to play, and maybe they'll win another one because they have the best player on the planet. Perfect way to wrap up this segment. We'll be back with segment number 2 and look at the future of the Minnesota Timberwolves right after this. And we are back here on Timberwolves Explosion, segment number 2. Time to look at the future of the Minnesota Timberwolves with free agency and draft. What future? I don't know. Well, yeah, you have Anthony Edwards, you have Karl Anthony Towns for now. All kinds of rumors swirling about what's going to happen there, including some stupid idiot comments on Patrick Beverley's podcast. Patrick Beverley has a podcast? Of course he does. Of course Patrick Beverley has a podcast. And of course Karl Anthony Towns would go on it and run his mouth again. Like he likes to do. When I used to get annoyed with him running his mouth about how, oh, blah, 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 I'm tired of losing and we're going to do something about it and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And everybody on, what was the name of the frickin' Facebook page? I don't even know. So a different Facebook page that I used to mention, not the current one. I used to mention it all the time and all that and blah, blah, blah. But, what was it called? Flip's Army, I think. But, yeah, yay. he would make these big statements, and I'd say, "Okay, dude, enough. Just play, dude." And then they'd get all defensive. Yeah, Cats sucked last year. Da 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 da. Well, and then they'd all gang up on me, just like it always is. It's like 50-1 type of ratio in that type of thing. Well, I think I won that argument by now. Okay, I think I won, and it's not even about winning the argument. It's just. First of all, why gang up on a person that has a differing opinion? I mean, you can't see eventually, like, okay, can you just stop talking? Just play? I don't know. Just play. Go out and play. You can talk, but not, like, make huge statements every couple minutes. It just feels like you're looking for attention more than anything else at the end of the day. But look who's talking, right? I don't know. With that said, though, Karl Anthony Towns talking about, and I know this is about the future of the Timberwolves, but maybe I don't want him part of the future too much longer if he's just going to keep being delusional, this and that. And we'll talk about that some more in fan interaction but I'll just kind of throw the statements out there and get some reaction from you on the Facebook page. It was more of Karl Anthony Towns basically saying how the Timberwolves, it was more impressive what the Wolves were able to get into the first round and all that, and how we hung in there versus Denver, compared to Denver winning the whole thing. I have no idea where that logic comes from. We got beaten 5 games. Yes, McDaniels would help a lot. McDaniels would have helped so much, Jade McDaniels. But that's on him. Who broke his hand? Jade McDaniels broke his hand. It wasn't a freak injury. Naz Reid was a freak injury. Yes. Jaden McDaniels broke his hand, though. Kyle Anderson and Rudy Gobert acted like, guys that overreacted, especially Rudy Gobert. Mostly Rudy Gobert, but Kyle Anderson, I don't know. You didn't have to agitate him either, though. Whatever. And Karl Anthony Towns, like, always kind of like falling apart in big moments, complaining every 10 seconds, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't look good. Anthony Edwards complains too much, too, to be fair. He does. But at least he backs things up a little bit better than Karl Anthony Towns has so far in the playoffs. It took like 50 years to get to the playoffs, and the one time we did a couple of years back, the first time we did in 2018, Jimmy Butler just jacked up shots. Andrew Wiggins kind of played like he was just, I don't know, he was just kind of there for a minute, and he, oh well, I missed again, doggone it, oh shucks, And then Karl was whatever he was. He'd have some good moments and not really. So, I don't know. Will all kinds of possible trade scenarios, this and that, Portland Trailblazers for the third pick, and all different types of ideas. Dallas Mavericks was an idea thrown out there. We'll see. Rumors out there. Oh, something could happen in the next couple of weeks. Other conversation. The Wolves absolutely are going to run it all back. Wolves being Tim Connolly and such. Anything could happen. I think at the end of the day. We'll see. We might mess around with the trade machine a little bit. I think we're going to, because that's kind of how we roll here. Because there is nothing really to talk about with the draft. And in free agency, sure, there's something. There's something to talk about with the free agency, but not as much as some years, I guess. And depending on what kind of trades there will be. At the end of the day, here's the draft preview, I guess. The Wolves are the 53rd pick in the draft. And according to NBADraft.net, Azuolas Tubelis out of Arizona is the pick there, according to them anyway, mock drafts, and it's a second round. And I appreciate that they do a second round. Again, out of Arizona, he's a junior already. Power forward, 6'10", 235. That's because they're going to trade Towns, so we're going to count on that second round pick. You know that, right? So, unfortunately, not much information at the moment. And again, I am going to come right here on Timberwolves Explosion and admit to you right here, face to face, or microphone to ear, or whatever the heck I'm just saying, imaginary face to face. I didn't research this draft. You know why? Because the Wolves picked 53rd, and I don't know, if we wind up making a big trade, so be it, but I didn't do a ton of research on it, because I'm not going to research guys that might go 53rd overall in the draft. Now, Scoot Henderson is the guy that has been talked about that the Wolves will trade for number 3, and he is projected to go number 3. So, there's a little bit of excitement there coming out of the G League, so that's kind of cool. And, of course, again, the Wolves need a point guard like we need to breathe. Mike Conley can play, kind of, sometimes. He's 36. He's 36 years old. He's not going to be here forever. After that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? Yeah. Brandon Miller's another conversation. That's the thing we've been hearing about. The one guy the Timberwolves will not be taking, because I don't think we're trading Karl Anthony Towns to the Spurs, and I don't think they're going to trade the first round pick, the first overall pick for Karl Anthony Towns either, for Victor, let's just call him Victor, Wembanyama. I guess it's not that hard, but I'm probably saying it wrong. To act like he's going to change the game and be this miracle man and be the greatest player of all time is a little crazy and stupid. He's actually being rated number 1 number 1 overall. He's actually being rated 101 is what I'm trying to say, which I didn't know was possible. Can you actually be rated 101? His potential is 10. His size is 10. Okay. Well, he's real skinny. Yeah. Some say he's 7'4", some say he's 7'2", but whatever. He's really tall. He's very athletic. He can shoot threes. He can make moves. He can block shots a little bit. Yeah, he can block shots. They even rate his leadership an 8, so that's kind of cool. His defense is a 9. So, yes, Victor Wembanyama. You have a lot of potential. The hope is, again, that he stays healthy. A lot of guys that are really big and stuff end up being, I don't know, like Yao Ming ended up getting hurt a lot. He ended up having all kinds of foot injuries and foot problems. What was the guy on the, why am I forgetting his name now? The guy with the Houston Rockets, that was 7'5" back in the 80s. Ralph Sampson ended up being just kind of, he was okay, but he never really reached his potential, and he was hurt all the time and wound up with, like, the Golden State Warriors and other teams. And by the end of his career, it was like, who's that again? Oh, Ralph Sampson. Yeah, that guy we were all, talking about forever. Well, not me, but NBA fans and all that such. Like when people used to record on cassette tapes, and then nobody heard them and stuff, but I guess you could pretend you're on the radio, which I guess you can say podcasts are kind of pretending you're on the radio, but well, at least people can hear them now thanks to the internet. And some of you like it, and some of you might be rolling your eyes thinking this guy sucks. He's just pretending to be a host. I think I'm a host. Maybe I'm not the best ever, but I think I'm okay. I'd like to believe. Cam Whitmore, blah, blah, blah. But Scoot Henderson is probably the right pick because of not only need, but he's a really good player, and he's right in that right spot. I don't know. Of course, I used to say that Wesley Johnson was a decent, okay choice for the Timberwolves at 4. and he ended up being one of the great busts in Wolves history, unfortunately. Mediocre player at best who just didn't have any special skills at all. I don't know. Supposedly he was this Pippen guy with great defense and whatever. Scoot Henderson, I got to think there's a little bit more excitement going on. Man, born in 2004. Jeez. That was when I was kind of going through some tough times looking for a new job because I'd been laid off from the bank several months earlier and I was working temp jobs and such. February 3rd, 2004. Jeez. You know, as the years go by, we get older and the draft picks, the age, the year they were born, it's amazing. It's amazing. Jiminy Christmas. He's older than my niece. A few years older than my niece. Seems like yesterday my niece was a baby, but we'll get off of that. Athleticism, number 9. Quickness, number 9. So obviously, again, potential, number 9. Overall, number 9. Overall, 97. Scoot Henderson, is a guy that I would love to have on the Minnesota Timberwolves and all that. But the odds of it happening are very slim. I'd love to have him. Gosh, he looks like a lot of people, doesn't he? He has one of those faces that's familiar. Like, he looks like 2 or 3 guys that I've met or known or are also look like a he looks like a former player. I'm blanking on who it is, but he's got a very familiar face to Scoot Henderson, but obviously a very dynamic point guard with potential up the ass. The odds of him winding up with the Timberwolves are probably very slim to none, just because it's just not going to happen, that kind of thing, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, it'd be fun to see. It really would. So we'll just have to wait and see if it is to take place, that type of thing. I'm going to mess around some more now into free agency before I babble around too much about the draft. Of course, Russell Westbrook is a non-bird. He's a flat-out UFA and blah, blah, blah. He's not coming to the Timberwolves. Kevin Love is an unrestricted free agent. Come home, Kevin. Come home, Kevin. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. James Harden, not going to happen. He has a player option of 35.6. Supposedly he wants to go back to the Rock Cats, and supposedly the Rock Cats want him back too. Okay, the Rockets. Fred VanVleet is a UFA with bird rights. Blah, blah, blah. We're happy for him. Karis LeVert. He made 17.5 last year. I kind of like him, but he plays shooting guard, which is the same position as the best player on the Timberwolves. The best player on the Timberwolves is not Karl Anthony Towns. It's Anthony Edwards. I got to think Karis LeVert, with the injuries and such and the missed time and all that, I don't know. I like him a lot, but gosh, he's almost 29 years old. Really? What the heck? He's almost 29 years old. And that Harrison Barnes, who, my God, he's only 31. That's weird. I know it's like only, right? No, yeah, he's only 31. Because I remember talking about Harrison Barnes constantly with Marcus the Forecaster. You haven't heard Marcus the Forecaster's name a whole lot on this show. You haven't heard his voice either for quite a while. And I remember having fun with Marcus the Forecaster when Harrison Barnes was on the Warriors. And he put on like the meanest, cruel dunk of all time on Nikola Pekovic. It was like, okay. Just tells you, man, that guy started a career very young. He must have been 19, huh? Club option for Derrick Rose, so that's a team option. Like they could, say, okay, we'll take you or take a walk, that type of thing. 15.6. Derrick Rose, no. I don't know. I can't believe how many people act like he's the greatest thing of all time. He was wonderful with the Bulls before he started getting hurt. Malik Beasley, club option, 16.5. Yeah, I think Vince Germano is going to tell him to bugger off. Bugger off. Beasley, bugger off. Just bugger off, mate. Bugger off. That's perfect, right, Vince? Right, Vince? I'm talking to you right now, Vince. Malik Beasley, bugger off. I bet you love having that. I bet you love that the Lakers have that control on that one. I would too. I would probably use the same exact phrase. Gary Trent Jr. has a player option of 18.6. Seems like yesterday he was like barely getting time on the Portland Trailblazers, and then he ended up being a really nice player. Of course, the son of former Timberwolves, under height anyway, short, big man, power forward who had a great post game, but was just too damn short to be all that successful. And I know 6'5" is, that's real short, Joey. Well, for a power forward, it is. And you're not going to be as effective as like a 6'9" dude. That's just a fact, So, Yeah, he wasn't a long guy. He was the opposite of a long guy. Kind of a stocky dude. And then Gary Trent winds up being a nice shooting guard. He can hit shots. He's good. A really good role player or a starter, that type of thing. Obviously, like a starter, but not like a star, just a starter, that kind of thing. Will Barton, Timberwolves, now he's 32 now he's like 32 and a half, whatever. He'll be about 33-ish during the course of the season. Ain't that a son of a gun? Seems like yesterday, but tells you how long ago, thank God, that David Kahn was a part of the Timberwolves organization as the president of basketball operations. Because Will Barton was a part of that infamous invisible bag when the Timberwolves were making trade after trade after trade after trade after trade down and raising money to make up for the Kurt Rambis contract, as we were about to tell him to bugger off. And, well, telling Kurt Rambis to bugger off was not a bad thing. It was just the fact, again, that you hired him in the first place, David Kahn. Show of hands? The team got better when David Kahn was president of basketball. Show of hands? Well, he thought they were better. Okay. I think some of you would understand that one. Brook Lopez, 35 already. Gosh, I remember shooting hoops with my friend, my long lost friend who passed away, Neil Nate Dogg Thiesing, and thinking about Brook Lopez on the Timberwolves back when we had, the third pick in the draft. That was the year we got Kevin Love, wasn't it? Man, I was like, Brook Lopez, not Kevin Love. I wanted O.J. Mayo. O.J. Mayo, who's that, right? He's like, he's on a milk carton, isn't he? O.J. Mayo. Kelly Oubre Jr., early bird. He's an early bird. He got the worm. Good for him. Josh Richardson, just under 30. Again, good for him, too. What happened to Josh Richardson? I thought he was going to be like a Jimmy Butler type. Like, not as good, but what happened to Josh Richardson? He played for New Orleans last year, 12.2 basically, and he's a bird. He's got his bird rights. But, man, I don't know. Dwight Powell's a name that's been mentioned. That could be a piece. Unfortunately, though, with the way the roster is currently constructed, I don't know. If you lose Naz Reid, I guess he could be a Naz Reid replacement. Nice veteran rotation guy, 32 years old. He will be anyway. THT, Talon Horton Tucker. No, I don't think so. The one that people are thinking about that I would like too, Seth Curry. If you want a nice spark plug off the bench, only $8 million last year. He's got bird rights with the Brooklyn Nets. I would like Seth Curry in the Minnesota Timberwolves. Gosh, yep, they're getting old. Steph is 35. Seth Curry, 32, almost 33, basically. Bruce Brown, wonderful addition by Calvin Booth. He's got a player option. He's a starter for Denver. Player option. He might opt out to get a raise because he did well. Lonnie Walker. Yeah, man, I can't believe Joe Ingles is almost 36. What the heck? Joe Ingles might out of Aussie. Lonnie Walker. Yeah, he's probably going to get kept by the Lakers, I'm guessing. He's a UFA. Well, I mean, if you want to go for it, sure. Spark plug type of thing. He's the great grandson of Lonnie Walker Sr., whoever that is, and God bless him. Rudy Gay's 37. That's great. I'm guessing he's going to opt in. He's going to, if you could get $6.5 million to just kind of be a coach, basically, man, Rudy Gay, remember? Still around. Crazy. Kobe White, guys like that, restricted free agents. He's their free agent. Rehab Hachimura, I could go on all day. Dante DiVincenzo, he has a player option of just of under $5 million. That's a name that I'm interested in. He's got championship pedigree in the college ranks. He did not win a title with the Warriors. He joined them this year. Actually, he did win a title with the Bucks, though, right? And the Villanova Wildcats. I like Dante DiVincenzo. He's got a little bit of that it factor. He'd be a nice, he could be a spark plug type of guy. He can spot starter, that kind of thing. I'm a fan of Dante DiVincenzo. He made only, just under. He made about $4.5 million this last year. Player option, may opt out and come to the Timberwolves for like a mid-level, or a portion of the mid-level exception to come to Minnesota. That's a name I've been interested in for a little while, and I talked about that with Ryan August Newman locally. Cool, really cool guy, by the way, coming out of Minneapolis. I like that guy. Yep, just in case he's listening. He said he listens on occasion. Cam Reddish, I've been a fan of his forever. But obviously he's an RFA, and he's with the Portland Blazers of jail land. I'm just kidding. Cam Johnson, part of that. The $9 million trades. That was the what do they call it? The Kevin Durant trade. He was a nice role player, 10 points a game. Doesn't excite me that much, but he's better than he's better than the other Johnson we had. What was his name? I just talked about him, Wesley Johnson. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Yep. And when it gets to free agency, I just babble forever, don't I? And I apologize. George Hill's 37. I've never been a big fan. Nickeil Alexander-Walker's restricted free agent. He made 3.5. If you can get him back at a reasonable amount, I want Nickeil Alexander-Walker back on the Wolves. If he wants $10 million, then yeah, it's probably not going to happen. People have been talking about Andre Drummond. Boy, he really he's been in the league 11 years already, and he's still just under 30. So he could be a better version of what we got with the big guy we signed last year for a short time. But yeah, he could be like a better version of that. Andre Drummond, if you're looking for some, like center depth. I've always kind of liked him. He was awesome with Detroit years ago. But unfortunately, it didn't happen too long. Alex Len is a free agent. He's 30 now. Kind of a fringe player, as they call him. This and that. Robin Lopez. I'm a fan, but he's 35. Jeez. Yeah, I mean, he's a twin brother of Brooks, so he's a good player. Good defensive player. Kind of more of the gritty of the two, where Brooks is more of the offensive kind of skill guy. So, Andre Iguodala, are you serious? He's 40 just about now. Yep, well, he's just like Haslam. He's a free agent at 43. 43 years old. The Miami Heat have re-signed Udonis Haslam for 5 years. 5 years and $5 million, right? Sounds about it. Sounds about right. He might make more as an assistant coach these days, but I'm just kidding. Wesley Matthews, gosh, he's really old now. Austin Rivers, I can't imagine the Wolves bring him back. I think we can upgrade there, like a DiVincenzo, or one of the other older guys that I just mentioned. Who was that? Oh, yeah, and obviously keeping Walker, Naw, as some people might call him. Yep. Free agency, my mind just wanders. It just wanders, and I look at guys, that I like Taj Gibson, 38 now. Jeez. Dennis Schroeder, Mr. Old Ice in his veins himself. Yep, he was having fun with the ice in his veins, hitting a big shot to beat the Wolves. Deladova, God bless him, he's another Aussie mate, but I love him to death, but he's okay. That's who would actually, in a lot of ways replace Austin Rivers, or he wouldn't get a whole lot of time. Now we're kind of getting into the depths here. Man, what happened to that guy? And he's only 25. Frank Ntilikina, I believe he was from France, right? So he had some potential, but just nothing happened. Giannis's younger brother, he's 30? Okay, he's not the younger brother. He's older. Greek Freak isn't that old, is it? Oh, maybe he is by now. It has been a decade. What the hell? Time flies. Time really flies. Wow. Yep. Stay with the Bucks. Maybe win a championship. He's 31. I'm going crazy. Jalen McDaniels, yeah? Jalen McDaniels, you wanna do it? I think that'd be kind of cool. Power forward, reserve kind of guy. Obviously, Naz Reid. Yep. He's gonna make that's the guy that in this whole group here that we're looking at, way down. That's gonna get a massive raise. Massive raise. He's probably gonna be in the double-digit millions per season, probably. If you can get him to 8, that'd be incredible. But he's gonna make money, and he deserves it. 1.5, he was in the minimum range. He's a UFA with bird rights, so the Wolves do have the right to keep him without having to worry about the cap. So we do have an advantage there, but in our current status and all that, and paying guys $100 billion that play his position, that's the thing. You don't want to commit, let's see, how much money? Oh, I don't know, $110 million basically to the same spot, center power forward-ish. So I guess it's 2 spots if you have those 2, but still. Just 3 players and $110 million a year, or something around that range, about 100. It's kind of ridiculous. So that's another reason why he might not return. I think I'm done digging now. You could go on all day. Scottie Pippen Jr. Scottie Pippen Jr. And he's only 22.6 in age. 22.6. Yeah, he's almost 23. Ron Harper Jr. What's next? Steve Kerr Jr. Michael Jordan Jr. No, they're in their 30s already. I can't even believe that. It's funny. Scottie Pippen. Well, as long as it's not Bill Wennington Jr. I think we can pass on that one. Let's see, who else? Dennis Rodman III or something. I don't know. Yeah, because he's ancient now. Dennis Rodman's like 60 plus. Heck, Michael's 60, and he's selling the Hornets. God forbid that. That's kind of weird and funny, but he's a billionaire, and he's selling the Hornets for some reason. I'm not sure why, but he's a billionaire because of it. And, well, Michael Jordan, if anybody's going to be a billionaire, it might as well be him. Any athlete or former athlete. So it might as well be Michael Jordan, if anybody else. D'Angelo Russell, we'll see where he winds up. Of course, he's a UFA with bird rights with the Lakers. Bugger off, mate. Yep, bugger off, mate. Vucevic, oof, yep. Those are some nice ones, but obviously that's not what the Wolves are. Yeah, that's not a conversation at all. Vucevic coming to the Wolves would be like, if we get rid of Gobert, which I would not be complaining about one bit. I'd pay Vucevic $25 million and have him over Gobert any day. Gobert's like whatever the heck he's making, $1 billion. So, yeah, 38, 41. Yeah, Karl's going to be going from 36 million this 23-24 to 50, and then 54 the next year, and 58 the next year. $58 million a year. Do we ever get to a point where we're like, yeah, that's a little, can we, yeah, seriously. Don't you think that's too much, especially for, he's not the best player on the team, I don't think, especially long term. So, I don't know, man. I think it's getting a little out of hand. I really do. And I'm not hoping for a lockout. I'm not going to be on a soapbox screaming about players making too much necessarily. But that's too much. That's too much. I'm sorry. Rudy Gobert, 43 this next year, 46 the next year. And goodbye. Goodbye. Yeah, it's been good. It's really been good. It has. That's a player option, 46.6. Yeah, what a shocker. What a coincidence. He accepted it, right? That's about what's going to happen, 25, 26. Oh, what a coincidence. He's going to turn it down, right? Especially after scoring 10 points a game and one and a half blocks. But he does the little things, Steve. He does the little things. So shut up, you idiot. You don't know what you're talking about, right? Sure he does. Lots of little things, like punching teammates, like punching teammates and dropping the ball and stuff. But no, he's better than that. I know, but again, 46 million. I'm not sure I agree with the salary too much with that one. At the end of the day, just like 58 for Karl in a few years, I just blows my mind. It really does. But the Wolves do have a chance to add some valuable pieces. DiVincenzo is way at the top of my list. Not necessarily the guy, but he's way up there. Scoot Henderson would be a nice dream scenario for the Wolves if we trade Karl Anthony Towns. Andre Drummond's a guy I like in the free agency a little bit. Keeping Walker, I like that quite a bit. Try to run, Lonnie Walker, maybe. Maybe. He's non-bird, so the Lakers, and Seth Curry. Like guys like Seth Curry, guys like that. You want to bring a nice veteran who doesn't show off every time he hits a shot. He's actually a little better about that. So, and you know what? Josh Richardson, shoot. It wouldn't kill me, but it's probably not going to happen. No, probably not. He can definitely play, but I better shut up. And if we're busy trying to get guys back that either somebody else screwed up previously or that or that Tim Conley wants, Will Barton would be an interesting guy to bring back or bring in the fold to make things interesting, so to speak. So I think I've babbled enough, but I tend to do that every year when it comes to free agency. My mind just starts wandering, and I enjoy it. I actually enjoy it. My memories, funny thoughts about this guy, looking at, holy crap, he makes that much, or, oh, wow, that's cheap. So things like that, and daydreaming about free agency. I like it. The draft, there's just not a whole lot of daydreaming this year. And you know what? That's fine. I can take a year off when it comes to researching players coming in. So that's just how that goes. With that, I'll take a quick break now. We'll come back for fan interaction to hear what you guys have to say. And we are back here on Timberwolves Explosion, State of the Timberwolves 2023 finale segmento, or just final segment, fan interaction. Again, thank you again for listening to the show so much. Please listen to it on Spotify if you could, and of course, encourage friends to listen to the show that like the NBA, like to talk about the Timberwolves, this and that. So I better get to the point as soon as possible. I guess I just saw the number one pick lose, I guess, unfortunately, but I think this is a replay, though. He lost like a championship game or something, so yeah, I don't follow it super closely, so I'm going to admit that. It's like, it's EuroLeague basketball. It's cool and everything. It's not necessarily available to us as much as others, I suppose, unless you have specific subscriptions. Now that I've babbled enough, it's your turn to talk, not mine, okay? Sorry. Episode 369 on Twitter was retweeted by Derek Felska, coming in out of Western Wisconsin, great friend of Brave the Wild, and is a friend of this show as well. Of course, we don't talk about as much basketball, unfortunately, together, but he talks about hockey quite a bit with Brave the Wild, and amazing guy. Does a great podcast called the... Why am I going crazy? The Crease and Assist podcast, which also talks about the Minnesota Wild. We're, big friends, and it's a lot of fun. Vinrock Vince Germano, the Courtside podcast, awesome. At Vinrock44, great friend for many years now, well over a decade, and man, just love you to death, Vince. Big Laker fan, but Wolves fan as well. Levi Brown out of New Zealand. Levi and Tanae Brown out of New Zealand. I don't know if Tanae retweeted, but he usually does. But Levi did, and I appreciate it so much. Coming in out of New Zealand, and also an amazing guy. Just amazing people. These are at the top of the list, man. When it comes to Timberwolves Explosion, but really in general, not just the Wolves or Timberwolves Explosion, but just amazing people. So thank you so much for the retweets and the likes. I was ranting a bit. I was saying if this Celtics team had a bleeping backbone, they would probably be able to be a real challenge for the Denver Nuggets, but they don't. I have little to no faith that the Miami Heat will beat the Denver Nuggets in the NBA Finals. Disappointing. Yep. I didn't like the way that was going. The Celtics just, again, back-to-back years, just kind of stopped playing. It was stupid. It was freaking dumb. Conversation, I was ranting about something. Okay. There's Timberwolves fans on Facebook and Twitter and such that were going crazy that the Minnesota Timberwolves lost to the eventual champions. I was saying, the Denver Nuggets. I can't believe Timberwolves fans are celebrating that we lost to the eventual champions. With all due respect, what the hell is wrong with you? So I was on a huge rant. Bill Williams says, we'll see if you keep this same energy when we hang that banner in the rafters. Yeah, I mean, okay. I gotcha. I'm going to follow back. I thought I followed him. That's dorky. Hopefully he follows back. But yeah, sure, we're going to hang the rafter. In this town, this is the only town we might actually do something like that. Obviously retiring Migo Koivu, with the Wild. I don't know. I wasn't a huge fan of that. Dan Minnesota says we lost to NBA Champions banner. Bill Williams responds with, I would argue it should be we played the eventual champions tougher than anyone banner. We did play them tough, and there was no Jaden McDaniels, so that is an argument. And I was saying I will keep the exact same energy. Losing in the first round is lame. Yeah, it is. I hate losing in the first round. It sucks. Dan Minnesota is responding to, he liked that better. We played the NBA champions better than anyone banner. Yep. And Benzo. Yep, Benzo responds also. He's coming in out of the Bronx, and I apologize for not liking it. It's been a couple days. Not too many. Benzo coming in out of the Bronx says, it's just something to do, bulletin board material. We should take it personal and win a series. Yep. Until then, nothing should be wrong with this. Let me see. How am I looking at that? Yeah. Nothing. Yep. I can understand. I mean, yep. It's just something to do with bulletin board material. I suppose. Yep. I can see that. I can see that. So I'm not like, what? What did you just say? What the hell? No. So now we'll hear what you guys had to. I don't think you responded to anything, but you voted. And so I think on the Brave the Wild, because I'm getting mixed up now in my head. The Brave the Wild, State of the Wild episode, there was all kinds of responses. This one, I don't think there was on the voting. Some of them are, for both teams, the MVP was obvious. The biggest disappointment, Jordan McLaughlin and Karl Anthony Towns tied. Jalen McDaniel, Rudy Gobert didn't succeed. So Jordan McLaughlin and Karl Anthony Towns came up as a tie for biggest disappointment. Not many people voted, unfortunately, but this Twitter account isn't exactly like prominent, unfortunately. It's like a recreated one, so not many people followed it, but at least the pillars of this show did. Naz Reid and Nickeil Alexander-Walker tied for the biggest surprise. Okay, cool. Luka Garza and Jaden McDaniels were the other options, and they, did not get it. As for the most valuable player, it got a couple more votes. Jaden McDaniels actually got a vote or two, 14.3%, and Anthony Edwards, 85.7%. The other possibilities were Naz Reid and Kyle Anderson. I was not going to put Karl Anthony Towns up there, even though I probably should have, but I wasn't going to do it. I didn't get any complaints about it, so that's a sign that, not many people were too offended that I did that. So there's that. Let's get to the Facebook page. I believe there's a little more activity there, but again, thank you guys that did respond on Twitter. That was pretty cool. Facebook.com/Timberwolves Explosion. As for the Twitter account, it's at TWolvesEX, at TWolvesEX for the Facebook page. Yes, okay. So I shared something. It didn't get a whole lot of response. It was like, if in today's game, how far would the best player ever to wear a Wolves jersey go to the finals, or would we go to the finals or championship? Some people say we'd get to the conference finals. Some say NBA champions. Okay, I think, Tene Brown, there he is. He says, I can't imagine Kevin Love having to play defense against small forwards or shooting guards. That would be scary, wouldn't it? Yeah, because he's like the wing there with Garnett and Towns. Yeah, I agree. Now, putting Derrick Rose, he's not the greatest point guard to ever play here, so that's kind of irritating. Why not Sam Cassell? Derrick Rose, why? Because he had a 50-point game? So, again, that's people overrating Derrick Rose. And I don't think it's going to take long for Anthony Edwards to supplant Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler had one season here. One. The second year doesn't really count. He was kind of, he didn't want to be here. He wasn't really playing. He was kind of like Spreewell that second year, kind of making an a-hole of himself. So, I don't know. I think that's kind of, I'm not a fan of that, actually. I'm not like Derrick Rose and Jimmy Butler. I probably shouldn't have shared this because Derrick Rose is not the best point guard to ever play for the Wolves. And Jimmy Butler is going to be, if he isn't already beaten by Anthony Edwards, he's going to be, like, tomorrow. So, it's actually kind of a dumb one. I shouldn't have shared it. I'm actually regretting that now in hindsight. But, Kevin Love playing against, like, small forwards and stuff. Yeah, that's very funny. That's true. I put ha-ha for that one. It's true, though. Sorry for the late response. Yep. Nikola Jokic modeled his game after these legends while growing up in Serbia. Magic Johnson, I can see that. Hakeem Olajuwon, I can see that. And Michael Jordan, okay. All right. Because a lot of people would love to follow Michael. Nikola Jokic says, I didn't follow that much NBA because in Serbia the games are on at 3 or 4 in the morning. When YouTube came out when I was like 15, I watched Magic Johnson. I watched Magic because of his passing, and Hakeem because of his post moves, and Jordan because he's Jordan. See? Pretty cool. That was nice. No responses, just likes. Next. Karl Anthony Towns. When my time... Yep, this is the other side of the Karl Anthony Towns conversation. Mine is the... wow, we were really impressive against Denver or whatever. When my time is up and I retire, there will be people that say I changed the game. And a lot of people think that's completely stupid and delusional. I would say it is. I would say it is stupid and delusional, no doubt about it. This is that whole Pat Beverly podcast. The other side of it, I can understand a big man that can shoot threes. It's impressive and it's cool and everything, but I don't think he's as historical as other people, as he might see himself as. So, yeah. So I guess these are the champions of France that I'm seeing. So, anyhow, let's get to the responses. Andre, I believe, is on Carl's side, so that's totally fine. Let's keep moving. I'll get to what everyone has to say. Andre says he will change the game the moment he is in a better system. Okay, yep. I mean, okay, we'll see. I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I think he's been in quite a few systems already. I don't know, but we'll see. Dan May coming in out of Aussie. Andre is local here in Minnesota. We were classmates at Maranatha Christian Academy back in the 90s. Dan May out of Australia, mate, says the only thing he's changed is his appearance. Yeah, he does look different. Yep. I like that. Neil Baker. Is it the first time? Minneapolis, Minnesota. Went to Jefferson Junior. Cool. And Alexander. Cool. Sorry. Yep. And so it's just interesting to see the little headlines, so you know where the person's from. So I hope I'm not annoying anybody. He says T-Wolves need to dump every player that shares Towns' character. No more losers. I agree. I like that a lot. That was, yep. Yeah. I mean, I did not like when Josh Minot and Garza were yucking it up with Karl. And Karl was the one leading the yucking up after the Wolves kind of choked away a game against the Golden State Warriors on the road. Yeah, that team. That was beyond maddening. You're yucking it up on the sidelines. Are you flipping kidding me? Well, Naz Reid was like furious. What did he have? 30-some points and played a great game, and we just blew it. We had that game. Karl's yucking it up with his boys, they're just kind of yucking up something. It's annoying enough when people at work do that crap when they're supposed to be working. But, my God, the crunch time of a game, and you just blew it. And you're yucking it up on the sidelines. It's so stupid. Unacceptable. Anyhow, Nicholas Simon coming in out of Australia, mate, says, nope, yes. He says, I don't understand how people can have such little self-awareness. I was saying, amen, brother, it's ridiculous. Nicholas Simon responds with, because he could be amazing. Yeah, see? But he just doesn't care enough to do it because he cares, but he cares enough to talk about it. Oh, you see. That hit the nail right on the head. It doesn't get better than that. That was exquisite. And I'm not trying, that is perfect. Exactly. He cares enough to talk about it. That is that is an all-time statement on Timberwolves explosion. That is a Mount Rushmore statement. You nailed it. Max Day, the cousin of Marcus the Forecaster, and I'm actually really happy to see you, Max, on here, just in case you're listening. I am. I miss you. I miss you. I do. I miss you. You're a good guy, and we played a lot of basketball. I'm saying this sincerely, just in case you're listening, and I hope you are. He says, I'm honestly thinking about his mental condition if he really believes that. Same here. And I think Max must be 30 years old now, isn't he? Jeez, the clock ticks, doesn't it? He's got to be old. Yeah, we're getting old, all of us. I'm 43, almost 44. Yep, all of the courtside guys are well in their 40s. Yeah, they're in their 40s. Oh, man, getting old sucks. It is what it is, though. I mean, what are you going to do, What are you going to do? I mean, Steph Curry's 35. I think Max is about Ricky Rubio's age, if I remember correctly. I'm just kind of, I think he's a 90 guy, 1990. I think so. I know, it's just random. Up there's Scoot Henderson. There's Scoot Henderson. All right. That would be my top choice for the Wolves, obviously, other than Victor. But we're not going to take Victor. And it would be hilarious if the Wolves wound up with Victor, because some weird circumstance, the Wolves got the number 1 pick in the draft and wound up with him. It'd be kind of funny. Karl Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, and then Victor Wembanyama. That would be hilarious. Scoot Henderson, another Agent Zero, huh? Just wow, yeah. See, penetrating to the basket and making all those moves, yeah. And I like that he's built too. He's not just like a little twig. Yeah, see, that's important. I like that he's built. Those guys last longer. Those guys have more potential. Yeah, that's good. And he's 19, so I like that. Scooty, there's Scoot Henderson. Yep, cool. Very cool indeed. With that said, now that I've rambled enough, that's a wrap. That's pretty much a wrap of Timberwolves Explosion, State of the Timberwolves 2023. Thank you so much for listening to the show. It is an absolute honor. I was on a roll here. I recorded more at once than I normally do. Oftentimes, I'll kind of piece this thing together, but today I ended up recording most of the show in one shot here, or a couple segments in like around back to back, and because I just was feeling it. I was feeling it, really enjoying it, and I miss doing the show so much, and can't thank you guys enough, and looking forward to the draft. Maybe the Wolves do make some kind of trade, and maybe like an actual trade like of actual players, because now everything's going to activate and everything. Again, congratulations to the Denver Nuggets. We'll see if Karl's back with the Wolves, this and that. And we'll have a show in the next 2 to 3 weeks where it's a free agency special, or you like to do in the month of July. So at least one Timberwolves show in July coming up. Thankfully, no major commitment or anything, like have to get 5 shows out a week or something to get ads and all that. But it is what it is. With that, though, again, please tell your friends about the show. Put a positive rating on Apple Podcast, Spotify, this and that. It'd be greatly appreciated. And tell your friends about it, like I've said 50 times already. Check out the Courtside Podcast. Huge recommendation, the Courtside Podcast. Again, we'll talk to you guys soon, and have a great summer or winter if you're in Australia, unfortunately. But have a great summer to those of you locally as well.